So I got hired as a lecturer in sports science at Manchester Metropolitan University. And after a couple of years, one day I was walking past the office, and in front of my secretary, the secretary's desk, not my secretary, was Brian Kidd,
Right.
who people know as Alex Ferguson's assistant.
Uh-huh.
And this was before sports science and football really had come together. Um, uh, um, Roy Hodgson had been abroad coaching in Europe, and he brought back some sports sciencey ideas about training. Sam Allardyce, this is a bit before the Sam Allardyce Bolton experience, where he took basically American principles about conditioning and incorporated them into Bolton. So basically, the club, Manchester United, were looking at sports science, wondering what it could do for them, etc. So the minute I saw that, because I played semi-professionally in the States, I just thought, man, that is exactly what I want to do. I want to work with or for Manchester United, if at all possible.
Mm-hmm.
So what I did, it took about 2 years because United didn't go for sports science immediately. So basically, I sat down. I got really frustrated in my job one day, and I sat down and wrote down 100 sports science ideas for the Manchester United Academy.
Mm-hmm.
And I sent it just cold to Les Kershaw, who is the current Academy director. Mm-hmm. And then the ball started rolling because he showed the list to a good friend of mine now, and really a primary mover in youth football in this country, Tony Whelan, mm-hmm. who was head of coaching for the Academy. So he got in touch with me and he said, "Oh, I like this number 5 on your list, which is build a library at the Academy." So that was a fairly simple one. We went in and ordered the appropriate books for the coaches, the physios, the players, etc. Yeah. And then another 6 months later, Tony phoned me back and said, "Okay, we're doing something different here. We're going to try to play small-sided games in our under-9 Premier League matches, match play thing. We want somebody to come and assess it. Would you come and do that?" And so I said, "Okay, I have to, if I have to, you know." But that's the thing about Manchester United, you know, that not many people get inside to work with the club. But once you're in, mm-hmm. honestly, it is the biggest family you could ever wish. It was high pressured. It was very stressful, of course. But, you know, there was a lot of laughter. There was a lot of good times. And I made a lot of friends who I still have today. Mm-hmm. So the 4v4 program, the background to that was that the year before the club had looked at their under-9s, under-10 players and decided technically they were falling behind some of the continental teams and they wanted to improve things. They just brought in a skills development coach, René Mullenstein, who many of you have heard of. Yeah. He was an expert in the curver coaching system. And so they put together a small-sided game program for their Premier League matches. Again, this is under 9. Now, the Premier League at first, you know, it was they had to petition. They had to get permission from the Premier League. So when teams from Liverpool, Man City, even as far as Newcastle would come to Littleton Road for the youth games, they would play 4 different small-sided games, okay, instead of a single 8v8 game. The games were just kind of traditional training games, so like line ball where you had to dribble and stop the ball on the line. But they devised them so that they would bring out different skills. Mm. Now that is, you know, at the time there was no talk, constraints-led theories and game-based learning, and you know, it was still in its infancy, and it just is one of those things of fate that you know, the coaching staff there had picked up, you know, the small-sided games approach of let's be honest about it. It kind of started with the Dutch. Rinus Michels started at Total Football and all that stuff, and certainly came through René slightly. Mm-hmm. But yeah, they had the nous to try to, you know, improve the game performance and the match play, technical skill development. That was what it was all about.
Excellent. And,
Yeah.
just to give the listeners an idea, so you talk about maybe different games. So I've made a few notes here. Correct me if I'm wrong. So there was the goalkeeper game, which was simply, maybe 12 by 6 goals, where if you had a couple of keepers that wanted to be involved, you added the goalkeepers, and it maybe in effect became 5v5. And then there was just like a 2-goal game with no keepers, 4v4. There
Yeah.
was also the 4-goal game, which sort of obviously encouraged switching of play and the width.
Yeah.
And then, as you quite rightly said about the line ball, then just the dribbling and stop it on the line. Was that the kind of idea to give the different themes of some of the games used?
Yeah, that was exactly the idea. Now the coaches had no idea about what if they had chosen the correct game. So when I came in with my team of film students, we basically filmed the games, the 4v4 games, and then we compared it to the filming we had done of the original 8v8.
Mm-hmm.
So the results of that were published in the FA coaching magazine Insight, and it's basically made its way around the world. Now, it wasn't terribly difficult science. There wasn't a lot of correlational stats. It was simply filming, observing and viewing, and then counting the different things. So the results were basically that because of the 4v4 games, the Manchester United players, during the 8 games that we assessed, they had 585 more passes, 481 more scoring attempts, 301 more goals scored, 525 1v1 situations, and 436 more tricks or dribbles, whatever you want to call it, compared to the normal 8v8.
Wow.
So, people love stats, people love numbers. You can't argue with it. You know? So that's why it was so powerful.
And it's great because that year-long study, as you say, of the pilot scheme, comparing that data from the 8v8 to the 4v4. I suppose the other big advantage as well is everybody played. Was that the idea as well? Instead of maybe groups coming to play Manchester United and having a squad of, say, 16 and maybe having 8 subs, maybe not as many as that, but playing 4v4 over 4 different games. All kids played. On average, they played, 6 games of 8 minutes in length, and there was no subs. Am I right in saying that?
Absolutely. Now, this is one of the fascinating things that I and my team, we picked up on this. There was a couple things. So everybody played. There was no subs. Sometimes there was like a 4v3 game because they couldn't find another player, and that was okay. The kids just swapped teams, and I'm sure what Paul Cooper was talking about is, you made it even. Yeah. The other thing the coaches did, which I found really interesting, is they didn't actually say very much during the games. Mm-hmm. Now contrast that with, the picture of the coach on the sidelines, yelling, screaming, telling the players what to do, press, squeeze, get back, blah, blah, blah. There was none of that. There was none of that from the United coaches. Everything was positive. So it was all about what they did well. Okay. So that was amazing to see, because the kids, they refereed themselves. Okay, there were no referees, and the people said, "Are you crazy? You're going to get Liverpool versus United match with no referees? What are you on a riot?" But as you know, the kids just got on with it. They wanted to play, so. No reason to spend time, arguing stuff. Let's get on with it. Let's play.
Yeah,
really
it's fascinating
stuff.
Listeners that probably have different backgrounds, regardless whether they're from pro background in the academy level or whether it be right down to grassroots. As I say, the benefits really do outweigh. The flexible format, everyone playing, more touches on the ball, different game situations, and so many opportunities for everyone to score. And the problem solving, which you talked about as well, and a big bonus as well. I suppose everybody gets to play in all the different positions, because the 4v4 game is like a small version of the big game, but you've still got the main components, which is your depth, your width, and your penetration. So that's and it's easy then for kids to see and understand those concepts.
And I think it's really easy for coaches to see, if they think about it, is if the kids aren't moving and playing, then they're not learning. Okay, mm-hmm. This is really, really important. How many times you go past a pitch and you see the coach demonstrating, or the kids standing around waiting for their time to kick, whatever, we have to teach via moving and playing the actual game. There are so many scientific reasons for this and rationale, constraint series, whatever you want to call it. We have to get kids moving, especially in America.
Yeah, I mean, I am and still am a massive, big advocate of the small-sided games, and always promote across my own projects here in Northern Ireland. And just to go over the science, the data, which you got, I mean, the number of passes, I've got the percentages here, increased by 135%. The number of goals scored increased by 500%. It's crazy. Number of 1v1 encounters increased by 225%. And the number of the dribbling, the skills and the tricks that you mentioned increased by 280% when you compare the 4v4 model to the 8v8. So coaches listening, parents, players, it just shows you the benefit of small-sided games.
And I think equally important is not what they do, the small-sided games, that's one aspect, but the other huge aspect is the environment they do it in. Okay, if that environment is supportive, happy, secure, and positive, then you're going to get an optimal learning environment. You can play 4v4, but if the environment and the parents are screaming and they're shouting at the ref and the environment's bad, they're not going to learn or want to learn as much as if the environment is a positive experience, basically.
And tell us this, Rick. I mean, especially here in Northern Ireland, people are so opposed to change. It's great to hear that one of the biggest clubs in the world, Manchester United, undertaking this and asking permission from the Premier League, can they do this? Was there any clubs that was opposed to this idea or were slow to come around to this way of thinking that it could benefit the kids of that young age?
Yeah, really, really good question. And it was one of the questions that I had when we were kind of presenting the data and stuff. So one of the questions on the questionnaire I gave to the other clubs was, would you be prepared to bring this back to your club and instigate it there? And basically, to cut a long story short, one or two said, yeah, we might think about it.
Right.
The others, politics and football being what it is, I know for a fact that a lot of the clubs saw this as a way for Manchester United to try to get more players scouted from around the country. Now, this was before there was a 1 hour, scouting limit, basically. Yeah. So the clubs are very, skeptical about the reasons that Manchester United were doing this.
Right.
There you go.
It's funny because I remember when we started the TW Praga project here in Northern Ireland, maybe about 8 years ago, we had this, not crazy idea, but going by your influence and Paul Cooper and so forth, was when one of our teams were playing 11v11, we thought, well, the subs that we have, we've got 3 or 4 subs, so does the opposition. Got a couple of pug nets. Let's just go and put the pop-up nets up and let the subs play against each other in a bit of space behind one of the goals.
Yeah.
And when we said this before kickoff, it was so funny seeing the reaction from different clubs. It was, some were like, you want to do what? Oh no, we're against it. We want to keep our kids fresh for coming on. And I'm thinking, fresh? They're like 10, 11, 12 years of age. I mean, they want to play. And, obviously there comes a stage in football, coming into teenage years where it does turn out a wee bit more competitive as you start to get them ready for the senior game. But certainly at a young age, it's great just to see them continue to play. And it was nice because there were some clubs that loved it. They thought, what a great idea. And the kids mixed and it was super. But there was a lot of clubs that were completely against it. And worryingly enough, the ones that were against it were the ones who were putting these wee kids who were subs on with maybe about 5 minutes to go. And I'm thinking, what a terrible shame that kid has maybe been here for an hour. If you add in the travel, he's got 5 minutes of football, and at least he could have played some small-sided stuff at the side of the pitch the whole day.
Yeah, completely. And one of the parts of this study is that I interviewed both coaches and the parents of the Manchester United players. So we had small group interviews and stuff. And most of it was very positive about the scheme, but a couple of them said, oh, no. I've brought my son to Manchester United Football Club, and I don't really want to see him playing on, line ball, okay, where there's no nets, where there's small nets. That he's at Manchester United. Come on, this is not what this is kind of not what we signed up for. and so, and as an interviewer, I kind of note it and say thank you for your comment, but thinking, you really don't get it. You really don't get it. And so again, hats off to Tony Whelan and the rest of the Manchester United coaches. They really did have to fight and blaze the trail to get some of these changes made. And, hats off to them.
Yeah, because it's difficult when you're swimming upstream and you're trying to do something a wee bit different. I know how hard that is. And I mean, I'm right in saying that you became a consultant to Manchester United Football Club and assisting them with numerous youth projects over a 15-year period. And as you described, I read somewhere, I had found my dream job.
Well, I did. I had found my dream job, even though I grew up in Illinois where there's not much soccer, or Tennessee. I kind of got absolutely addicted, like most of your listeners did, and can remember when they just fell in love with the game. And it brought me so much. It brought me an international outlook. It's brought me over here. I've done things that I would have never dreamed of doing had I just kind of stayed in middle America and stuff like that.
I mean, is there any other sort of projects you want to share that you did at the club, or the coaches you talked about, Tony and Randy Mullerstein, and even the players that you helped work with on their journey? Is there any really nice stories that maybe went on to make a pro at United or maybe at another club? Is there anything that sticks in your mind that you'd like to share with the listeners?
Sure. One of the projects was the development of the United Academy plan. Sorry. So the club had to do an academy plan to give to the Premier League to get funding for the the different levels of academy. So I helped the club submit that, and in order to do that, I had to ask the coaches all their secrets. Okay, so we're sitting here now, and I've got so many secrets about what to do. No, I'm joking, but I mean, they were we had to submit it to the Premier League, but there was a lot of secrecy. I am not allowed by the club to divulge that information and stuff, because it's the bread and butter of an academy and developing players and stuff like that. So I was mainly back in the background. I was not developing players. I was not a coach, and I am not a coach. I would help the club with kind of academic stuff about submissions for projects and things like that.
Yeah.
There we go.
Fantastic. And you also had a spell working at Manchester City.
Yeah, Manchester Metropolitan University has signed kind of an agreement with the club. We offer, we did. I no longer work at Manchester Met, but we have a course for community coaches. That we have a degree course for community coaches that we run through the city football in the community program. So it's a really good relationship. Very, very different club than Manchester United. I was talking to a friend about this. The difference in feeling, the difference in both very professional, both fantastic people. Both really care about their players and the game, but it's just a little bit different because of the different owners of two clubs in the same city. So that's really interesting.
Yeah. And that maybe brings us on nicely then to a massive project that you were co-founder alongside Paul Cooper, who we spoke to recently, and that was Give Us Back Our Game.
Yeah.
Tell us more about that project.
Well, that grew out of the Manchester United pilot scheme, to be honest, because of that small-sided game. Not just the small-sided games, but the way the coaches approached the games and the no referees and all that stuff. We wrote the research, and then I got a phone call one day in my office from Paul Cooper, and Paul said he was a coach from Cirencester. He was thinking about starting a campaign to kind of reclaim children's football for the kids. And I immediately said, yes, absolutely, let's do it. He'd heard of me and the research for Manchester United stuff. So we started, and And this is a this is a story. This is a kind of a 10-year story where Paul and I would write articles. We would be interviewed. We did over 100 kind of media, basically telling people and trying to raise awareness to the fact that children's football needs to be for children. Okay. And we know that everybody gets a lot of pleasure out of watching football, coaching football, etc. But at the end of the day, the people who really, really benefit from it, we feel, are the children, are the kids. And too often we looked around and we saw, poor coaching, kids not playing, just standing around waiting for their turn, pushy parents, the whole thing, the whole gamut of problems in the children's game that are annual, continual. We still see some of the same stuff. So it's a constant generational thing where you have to re-educate parents about and ask them to look at the motives for what they're doing and the motives for coaching. What's your motive for coaching? I have no problem with professional coaches wanting to move up the ladder, but too often we leave the younger age groups to the lesser able coaches, and that seems back to front, really.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, 100% agree on that.
You're a prime example of somebody who really cares about the age groups that you're working with and knows that it's a specific growth and development situation. Their brains are different, their muscles are different, their nerves are different. It's specific to that age band. So again, it's really, really interesting stuff.
And I mean, on that project, you successfully lobbied the Football Association to initiate change to the football playing formats for young people, which is absolutely huge.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's a very, very, it was a very political time. We had to make a decision about whether to be, and this being perfectly honest, we had to make waves, and we had to upset some people, and it wasn't easy, and some people still didn't like it, and it didn't happen very quickly because this is my opinion only. We know that when there's an article in the Telegraph. Ben Fenton wrote an article in the Telegraph about Give Us Back Our Game, and it made the Sunday papers, whatever. And that was a turning point because after that, everything started to happen. And then we know for a fact the FA were having meetings about what to do, and we had meetings with them. Some of them were very frosty. Some of them, we know that they tried to upset things. If we did a presentation at a conference or whatever, we know that there were plants, if you will, asking very awkward questions from different organizations that didn't want change to happen. And the writing was on the wall. We had the data from Manchester United. We had constraints theories that were coming into play now, which says that children learn by seeking out and manipulating their environment, as opposed to it's a flowing thing. It's changing. It's not static. You need to be playing proper football or something that looks like proper football to learn football. We can go into all the physiological details in a second, but there were some hairy times. So, and it wasn't just Paul and I, absolutely not. The FA, once they did it their way, they went out on a road show and got data for 6 or 7 years, and absolutely hats off to them for that. But I don't think there's any question that in terms of the UK, Manchester United pilot scheme, then to Give Us Back Our Game, was the stimulus that was needed to get the changes, made. Because, before then, I mean, you saw it, Tim, that, we'd get games that were 18-0, because one team couldn't even kick the ball out of their half. They just weren't strong enough.
Yeah.
So the change, hindsight's great, and you think, oh yeah, of course. But at the time, it's like, oh, come on,
And it's the struggles and taking the criticism and the people that throw things at you. You have to be thick-skinned. You really believed in the, I mean, you had the data, and you had the massive powerhouse of Manchester United behind the data, which will skip people to sit up and take interest. And I mean, you've already highlighted the problems that can arise in youth sport due to overzealous or poor coaching, the pushy parents, and the win at all costs attitudes. And also believe now that US soccer are recently following, and they're using and adapted the same format, the changes to make the game more age specific and more fun for the kids.
Yep, that's been going on for about 2 years now. So they were a little bit further behind the UK, but yes, the US have followed along the same formats. They have the same implementation issues as it happened over here, but I mean, I would say it is a better way. There's no question that the kids are getting more play. They're learning skills quicker. You know, they're playing, and because football is such a complex game. I mean, if you think about it, you know, humans are not designed to play football, right? They're designed to walk for long periods of time on two legs. Okay, they're not supposed to twist and turn and shoot and score. So it is very, very difficult, complex. But you have children's physiology and human physiology, which is also highly complex. I mean, we know we've got 206 bones. We've got 600 or so full muscles, thousands of muscle fibers, hundreds of thousands of myofibrils. We've got trillions and billions, okay, 1 trillion billion nerve cells or young nerve cells in a young player's body. Okay, talk about complex. And the more we know about MRI scans, the more neural networks, the more complex. So it's all another interesting fact in a second. So the kids are always almost like a hypercomputer. Okay, we're giving them a very, very hard, difficult task and asking them to come up with solutions. But that's exactly what they have to do. Now, another interesting thing about especially young people's everybody's neurophysiology is that the brain predicts constantly. The brain, let me say that again. The brain is predicting constantly about your next move, what you're going to do if you go outside, how you're going to open the door. They're making predictions, okay? And we think that instead of just like having free will to go outside, your brain has already thought about it.
Yeah.
How wild is that? Okay, so for football, if we give kids lots of interplay and visuals and, you know, pictures, as they say in coaching stuff, give them lots of pictures, put them in the situation where they may need to make decisions. We let their predictive brains learn. Isn't that amazing?
That's mind-boggling. I mean, it's like the subconscious. That there's a thought process behind everything, but you know, it's going on in the background and you're not even realizing in a way.
That's it. So if you take them out of that playing arena and say, okay, guys and girls, get in a line of 10, we're going to take one shot each, then you go back to the end of the line. If you take them out of that real play experience, you're decreasing the amount of times they can take pictures and in the future predict about what to do in that situation when they get there.
And that is it in one. You know, I mean, how many times do we see coaches with the big long lines and they're passing the ball into the coach and the coach lays it off to the kid and he gets a shot and then he's back of the line. And it's amazing because when I think about that, it's like the kid is maybe getting 2 touches, 1 touch to pass the ball to the coach and the second touch to shoot for every like 10, 15 people in front of him. And it's the coach that's actually getting more touches at the end of the day.
He's a glutton. He's a pig. But then he gets in a real play situation and the whole thing is completely different.
Yeah. It's more enjoyable for the kids as well.